New to action PC football and don't know how to call a play? Bewildered by the options that you have? Then this video is for you. All right, our first segment here is on defensive play calling. You might be wondering why I'm starting with the defense first. I'll tell you, as I've been thinking here about creating a little series on how to play action PC football for those who might be new to the game, I thought, it may be better for us to start off with defense because for me, at least, the defensive side of the ball is a little bit easier to understand, a little bit easier to sort of figure out what it is you're trying to do and what different effect things will have. We're just going into the very, very basics here, though, and I don't want to get too deep into various strategies. We can cover some of the strategies and some of the differences here a little bit sooner. We want to get, though, first of all, into the very basics of how to make a play call. The reason why I want to teach you this, I want to show you this, even if you're somewhat experienced with this game, is because it's not necessarily all that intuitive. It really isn't. So you have a whole bunch of different options here. You have a whole bunch of different things that are going on, and you have a lot of statistics here. We're playing an exhibition game here. This is 1991. We have the Philadelphia Eagles, and these are the San Francisco 49ers. I like to keep this here on SCT, which is the scouting report, which will tell you how often certain plays have been called, and I believe might actually use data from the full season. You can play around a little bit of this here. This will give you that sort of game box score, give you some statistics for key players, tell you about how much usage players have if you're worried about overusing somebody, and so on and so forth. But I like this here when we're thinking about trying to figure out what it is that the offense is doing and what we can do to prevent them from doing it. Now, this part right here is really the first part you should be thinking about. This will tell you sort of what kind of formation you have. I actually haven't done any sort of research on the Philadelphia Eagles, but this will change guys out automatically, right? So you see that? You have here Mike Pitts and Jerome Brown. We go to 3-4. Well, Jerome Brown's there, but now we have Evans and Kowalski there as linebackers, and you can see that they automatically are adjusting based upon about where they would play in real life. And you can go through all of the possible formations to see this. If you really want, it's like one of these old school 5-2 type rotation formations that's really sort of stop them at the line, run heavy, you can have that. We can go into various forms of the nickel, depending upon what you think is going to happen. We can go into dime formations, which has the two nickel backs, right? So you're going to see it like that. Very interesting dime formation here where you got a safety playing up a bit closer in what normally would be a linebacker role. You have a 3-1 quarter. I'm not very familiar with this formation. You have a whole bunch of these little stack formations that are kind of old school, especially, something like this you would expect to see from a game from, like the 1940s. And then you have formation or setup for use in blowouts. I mean, this is just the 4-3 basic, right? Except your personnel have changed. So instead of playing your first team, you're playing all of the guys who are not on your first team and giving them some game time. That's really the first place that you want to be, right? Now, it'll tell you if you're doing something weird, right? If you have the stack on, it will say your formation is short defensive backs to match up with the offense, right? And if you look at this, you can tell that, yeah, we are kind of short. If we're playing it's more apparent if we're going into like a 6-2, right? We have a cornerback and a cornerback. We do have a safety here, I'm guessing, is covering the tight end. Nobody's covering the running backs at all. There's nobody back here. So if you get past the line, you got nothing but green. So, of course, we're not going to play with that, but that's kind of how you can make sense of what's going on. A lot of this stuff's a little bit more advanced, and we're going to wait a little bit to explain every little bit of it. Here, though, you can choose your coverage if you want to play man or zone. You can change your man matchups if you want. So we want Jerry Rice as their best receiver against Eric Allen. This is set up automatically, but you can change it if you want. You can say, oh, well, you want Rice to be covered tight and everybody else to be covered normal. We could also not cover Rice. That would be pretty interesting. We can do whatever it is that we want to do in terms of man matchups. There's a little bit of a spread here too. You can spread the defense in. You can spread it out if you think they're going to go inside or outside, and you click it again to turn it off. Zone defensive backs is something that you can turn on. This will bring up your man coverage preferences where you can go and you can set up exactly how you want to set up the zone. and it will tell you the defensive backs that you have in zone. Now, of course, that's only going to be an option if you are in man coverage, right? And what often is called cover two is having two of those defensive backs back, right? You can also go into zone, and look, that disappears because everybody's playing in the zone. You can show coverage, you can show tight coverage, loose coverage. If you're showing coverage, of course, what is happening is you're giving the other team a chance to audible. This is kind of a trick play, a trick defensive play, and you're trying to talk the offense out of the play that they're trying to call. You can choose blitzers if you want. If you're blitzing too many people, it will come up and say, hey, look, nobody's covering Rathman. You idiot, what are you doing? And when we look at these percentages, you can see that the more guys we're blitzing with, the more we're going to have somebody who's going to potentially be open. Or if we blitz everybody, Steve Young will run for a touchdown. If we play man, we can double somebody. Naturally, if we play zone, we can't. Over here, you have different things you can do with the line. Anticipate running to the left or to the right, depending upon what you think is going to happen. Of course, that is very, very risky because if you choose the wrong side, half the field is going to be open. You can play aggressively, which means you are more likely to be called for a penalty, but you might be able to strip the ball loose. You can play conservatively, which means that they'll complete the pass, but maybe we can make it so that they're not going to gain so many yards. In theory, although if you look closely at this, you will see that those ratings kind of do go up. And you can swap defensive ends, you can swap your outside linebackers, you can swap your cornerbacks. I guess it's only letting me really swap cornerbacks, though, because of the way that I've got this set up. You can assign somebody to spy the quarterback. You'll notice here that not all of the linebackers are up for to do this, and it is because we have assignments for some linebackers already. If you want to change that, go into your man matchup and change it. And then finally, you can have somebody in the back provide some run support. So with all of that said, how do you actually call a play? Well, all of that is sort of like the icing on the cake, right? That's what all of your options are, and that's kind of what all of them do. The way to call a play is right here, right? You can have basic defense, which is what you're going to be in, I think, most of the time at the beginning of the game while you're trying to feel them out. You can defend against the run or against the pass. You can run a prevent defense. As you know, this is where we're going to give them the play, but try to stop them from getting a big gain on us. Goal line defense, where everybody will be kind of brought in. I'm not clicking on it because that would call the play. And then we can anticipate a pass or a run to a specific player as well. So let's just take a look at basic defense and see what happens here. Running out of the 4-3, and they hand it off to Henderson, and we stop him, and there is a penalty on the play. Holding on the offense, and that will back them up even further. And there you have it. That's a very, very quick look at the art of calling defensive plays in action PC football. All right, now it is time to take a quick look at calling plays on offense. So we've changed teams here. We have now the 1998 Minnesota Vikings. And we'll take a quick look and see what things happen. You can see that right from the start that part of this is very similar to what we just saw, right? You have your, as a pro set here, 2 wide routes, 2 running backs. You can go to 3 wide outs and 1 running back, 3 wide outs and 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers with a tight end. You can do all wide receiver formation there, double tight end options with different types of running backs. And you have a triple tight end formation. I'm not sure where you want to do it there. Full house formation where everybody's a little bit closer in. That's going to be an older type play. And then your pro formation for blowouts. Now, there are other things you can do here that you didn't see on defense, right? You can play in the I formation. That's only going to work, of course, if you're playing here in the pro set. If you're going to play with 3, well, I guess we can sort of do this with 3 wide receivers. You just have the running back behind you. But it's going to look, it sets me back to split backs every single time. You can't do that. Now, if you have 3 wideouts, you can do some fun things, right? You can have trips to the left or trips to the right, sort of thing that you see pretty frequently these days, especially in college football. You can have an unbalanced line where you can see we have both tackles on one side or whatever, depending upon where you want the play called. The idea here is to try to get all those defenders here on the left side and then run it to the right. or run it straight through all the defenders if you want. You can snap it directly to the running back instead of the quarterback. You can also snap it directly to a wide receiver if you really want to confuse the defense. Depending on the situation, you might want to do that. Those are all kind of trick plays, though, so you may or may not want to make that play call. Now, offense is more complicated than defense. There are like a ton of ways to call the play. And as I said, it's a little complicated here, right? So the way to call a play is we got to choose, in general, either what it is we want to do or who we want to go to, and then call a play from there, right? So your most basic play calls are right here. Inside run, outside run, run left, run right, screen pass, short, medium, long, or bomb. If we pick an inside run, then it's going to say, okay, who do you want to run it to? Who do you want to have run, right? We only have one running back in the formation, so it's going to be Smith. Run left or run right, it's either Smith or it's going to be Randall Cunningham. Now, if we're going to make a pass, let's say we want to take to complete a screen pass, we're going to have a whole bunch of different options open. This comp here is sort of your the chances of completing the pass, whereas for runs, it will be the chances of making a gain. And that is against the defense that we're assuming that we're facing. The RTE is sort of what happens if that player is being double teamed or is being keyed by the defense. Should that happen, think of that sort of as like the risk of taking this play. Like, right, what if they guess right and they guessed what you're going to do? How much does this harm what you could gain from the play? Average will tell you the average amount of yards you can expect, chance of interception if it's a pass, and this very remote chance of a touchdown from a screen pass here on your own, 29-yard line. And you can see that for every type of pass. So for a bomb pass, touchdown, chance will be a little bit higher, assuming that you can complete the pass to Randy Moss, but there is also a good chance for an interception, and this is what the average yard gain would be for a completed pass. Now, if we're going to choose this play, we do have some options here. This is actually true of all passes, right? We have the option to have play action on or off. And look at this. Play action will change our completion percentage. We're going to run these guys deep downfield. Naturally, play action will slightly increase the chance of a completion, and it will show you sort of the difference that all of this makes. We can say that the quarterback must pass. In other words, we're not going to let Cunningham do anything else. Not a great idea. And then we have this route plus option, which will extend the length of our pass routes. And so we're going to run it a little bit further. The chance of a completion, of course, diminishes because we're going further down the field. Now, these plays to the right of the basic plays are all different varieties of the basic plays, right? So, instead of just inside run, we can have maybe a dive play, or we could have a draw play where we have a little bit of hesitation going forward. We can try for a quarterback sneak. Only the quarterback can have a quarterback sneak. We can have a little push over the top if it were, say, 4th and 1 and we need to get that yard or half yard. And there are all sorts of different options that we have here and there. We can run a bootleg. We can run a jet sweep, which I know is relatively new in the game. And the same is true for all sorts of different passes. In future episodes of this, I will go in a little bit more detail as to what these different plays actually are and how they look. We're not going to go that in depth today because this is already a fairly long video. A couple other options to know about, right? You can run a zone seam. So if you know that you are trying to, or you're facing a zone defense, I'm not sure if we are or not, but if you suspect that we are, we're going to try to put a receiver into the seam of the zone. I spelled the word setting wrong, Dave, but it's all right. Isolate man, which is where we try to isolate a certain receiver to beat man-to-man. And in both of these cases, the receiver you choose will be the person who's trying to do this action. We can do what we call a combo pass, which is where we're going to have different receivers run different types of routes. So we want, say, Moss to run a bomb route. We want Evans to run a medium route or something like that. So you can do a very, very specific type of setup if you want to have a specific type of options for a specific type of play. And then you have the specials, and you have all of these plays, of course, hook and ladder. We're not going to run a Hail Mary because we're too far away. Just like we can't run a fade pass either. We're way too far away. We can do a triple option. It's more if you're playing in college. We can do trick passes. We can do reverse flea flickers. We can do all sorts of kind of interesting things to try to, make different things happen. So as you can see, right, Action PC Football offers you just tons of play calling options. I mean, like an incredible amount of variety just from this alone, without even thinking about the formation. Just looking at the play calls that you can choose from, the different things you can do a lot of stuff. You can play with no huddle. You can try to put on a hard count, and it will ask you if you want to take the delay of game penalty or if you want to snap it right at the 1 second mark. You can play it safe. Boy, play it safe. Boy, I should have done that yesterday, huh? Or in the last game, huh? With Cleveland. Playing it safe would have been a good thing. Maybe wouldn't have thrown that interception. Thank you, Brian Side. Head out of bounds. So if you're trying to run the hurry up offense, no huddle. Also have your receivers head out of bounds, and just remember to throw it out to them on the sides and not try to throw it out to them on the flat. Stay inbounds. We'll do the opposite. We want to stay inbounds at all costs, even if we don't gain as many yards as we could. Now, the other thing that we can do on here is we can do two things. We can have running backs in a different formation. So we're taking Smith, see that there? We're taking him and we're putting him up here, and you see the defense will automatically react. They're not going to leave him wide open. We can do the same thing with Evans. We can put him up. He'll go up in the same place, right? Because we have two wideouts down here. I'm assuming there is a way to put him down if we really want to. We can play with that later on. We can also keep them in the backfield if we know that we're going to pass and we want some extra pass protection, right? So I was watching just earlier while I was having lunch today, I was watching YouTube. I was watching clips from the NFL in 1955, and they had, when they were running the pro formation, teams would have usually both of these running backs would stay back to block when they were going to pass, right? You don't see that so much today. Instead, you'll have running backs sort of run forward, but that is something that you did see in the past. You have a request an opportunity to audible to different play before the snap of the ball. You're limited to do that, so you can't audible every down, which I think is perhaps a little bit different from your arcade games. And then if you click on a player directly, you can have all of those play options directly to that player. So if you watched as I was coaching the Browns in the first game of the season, what I would do is I would come up to, I don't know, their equivalent of Randy Moss and say, okay, I want to put something out to Randy Moss. Let's choose one of these passes, and then let's sort of see what happens. And it tells you other things. What's the chance of a fumble, how good or how bad this player is, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go here with the tight end. We're finally going to call a play for you. We'll see how this looks. We're going to come out of the shotgun. I think, yeah, let's go in the pistol. Let's see what happens. You can have the quarterback roll outside before passing if you want. It's different than play action. You can have, so you can adjust where that tight end is. We're playing strong to the right now, and you can go strong to the left. And you can put a man in motion, which increases the opportunity for an audible, because as happens with the man in motion, you're checking to see if they are playing man or zone. And you have a lot of options, don't you? And the fun thing about this game is that every one of these options will have an impact on what happens with the final play call. In other words, every single one of these options will impact what your chances of success or failure. So, with all that said, exhausting myself to death, we're going to just do a quick short pass. Very, very simple here, and we're going to choose Moss. Now let's see what happens. So we're out of the pistol, throws it, complete to Moss, and Randy Moss gets the first down. And there you have it. That is your very, very basic introduction to offensive play calling. Now, coming up as we move along here on Action Football Sundays, we are going to have more educational content on how to call plays in Action PC Football, what exactly all of these options do, what they look like, and what kind of strategies will work and what kind of strategies won't work. As I've said before, I'm not exactly the expert here, but we're going to become experts together. We're going to figure this game out, and we're going to conquer it. And I will see you on Sunday.